My girlfriend Sarah and I had been together for almost 4 years, and we'd been planning this trip for months. A friend recommended a lake up in the mountains, quiet, mostly empty this time of year, the kind of place where you could rent a small cabin right near the water and not see another person for days if you didn't want to. We drove up on a Thursday, planning to stay through the weekend. The cabin was exactly what the picture showed, simple, a little worn, but right on the water with a small dock and a fire pit. The nearest town was almost 20 minutes away, and the campground office at the front of the property was the only other building we'd seen since we arrived. The first 2 days were perfect. We hiked during the day, cooked dinner over the fire at night, didn't think about work or phones or anything at all. I actually had a ring in my bag, tucked into the bottom of my duffel, planning to ask her on our last night there, out by the water. On our third night, we walked down to the dock after dinner, just to sit and look at the lake. It was clear enough that the moon was reflecting off the water almost like daylight. We'd seen exactly 2 other people the entire trip, an older couple who ran the campground office, and we hadn't seen them since we'd checked in. We were sitting close together on the edge of the dock when Sarah went quiet. I asked if she was okay, and she said she thought someone was standing near the tree line behind us, watching. I turned and looked, and at first I didn't see anything. Then I noticed 2 shapes near the trees, close together, not moving. I figured it was probably other campers we hadn't run into yet, and I almost called out a friendly hello. Before I could, they started walking toward us. It was a man and a woman, maybe late 20s, dressed like they'd been swimming earlier, though the water was too cold for that this time of year. As they got closer, I noticed the woman was smiling. A wide, steady smile that didn't change even as they walked right up to where we were sitting. They stopped only a few feet away. Close enough that it felt wrong, the kind of distance you keep from someone you know well, not 2 strangers you've just met on a dock at night. Neither of them said anything at first. They just stood there, both smiling, looking down on us like we were something they'd been waiting to find. Sarah finally broke the silence and asked if they needed something. The woman tilted her head slightly, still smiling, and said, "We just wanted to see you both up close." I didn't know what to say to that. It wasn't threatening exactly, not yet, just deeply strange, the kind of sentence that doesn't have a normal response. I stood up, mostly just to put myself between them and Sarah, and asked if they were staying at the campground too. The man didn't answer. He just kept smiling, the same fixed expression the woman had, like neither of their faces had moved since they walked up. The woman answered instead, said they were around, which wasn't really an answer at all. Sarah stood up next to me, and I could feel her hand tighten around my arm. I told them, as calmly as I could, that we were actually about to head back to the cabin, hoping that would be enough to end this without it becoming anything more than an odd interaction to laugh about later. Neither of them moved out of the way. That's when I noticed movement near the tree line again, further back this time. Another 2 people, walking down toward the dock at a slow, steady pace, not hurrying, like there was no reason to. As they got closer under the moonlight, I saw they were also smiling, that same unnatural, unwavering expression. The first woman turned toward them and said, cheerfully, like she was greeting old friends, "Look, they found us." I felt Sarah's grip on my arm tighten harder. I told her quietly to start walking, and we tried to move around the group toward the path back to the cabin. The 4 of them shifted their position slightly, not enough to be an obvious block, but enough that the space between them and the tree line disappeared. I said, more firmly this time, that we needed to get back and ask them to let us pass. The second man, the one who just arrived, laughed, a short, sharp sound that didn't match his smile at all. Then, so fast I barely had time to react, he stepped toward me and grabbed the front of my jacket. I shoved him back on instinct, hard enough that he stumbled into the dirt. For a second, everyone went still, and I actually thought that might be the end of it, that they'd back off now that it was clear we weren't going to just stand there. I was wrong. All 4 of them moved at once. I don't remember the next few seconds clearly. I remember Sarah screaming behind me, and I remember getting hit hard enough in the side of the head that the ground tilted. I went down onto the dock, and someone, I think it was the second man, was on top of me almost immediately. I could hear Sarah still screaming, and then I heard her voice change, closer to the ground, like she'd been pushed down too. I twisted enough to see her being held by one of the women, not hit, just gripped by the arm, kept in place while she struggled. The man on top of me was going through the pocket of my jacket, and for a horrible second I thought about the ring, still zipped inside my duffel bag back at the cabin, at least safe from whatever this was. He wasn't looking for that. He was patting me down like he was searching for something specific, a phone, a wallet. I genuinely didn't know. I did the only thing I could think to do. I grabbed a fistful of loose gravel from the edge of the dock and threw it directly into his face. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He flinched back just far enough for me to get an arm free and shove him off me. I scrambled up, grabbed Sarah's hand, and we ran. Not toward the cabin, which felt too obvious, too close to where they might expect us to go. We ran along the tree line instead, away from the water, deeper into the dark, putting distance between us and the dock before circling back. Behind us, I heard someone laughing again, that same short, sharp sound, but no footsteps chasing us, at least not that I could hear over my own breathing and Sarah crying beside me. We came out near the campground office, completely dark at that hour, no car in the small lot out front. I pounded on the door anyway, hoping someone lived there, hoping anyone would answer. Nobody did. We ended up hiding in the space behind the building, crouched low against the wall, for what felt like over an hour. My face was bleeding from somewhere near my eyebrow, and Sarah wouldn't stop shaking. Neither of us said much. We just listened. At some point, I heard footsteps on the gravel path near the office, slow, unhurried, the same pace they'd walked toward us with on the dock. A voice, one of the women, called out into the dark, not shouting, almost singing it. "We are not going to hurt you. We just want to finish saying hello." I put my hand over Sarah's mouth, not hard, just enough to keep either of us from making a sound. We stayed frozen against the wall of the office, listening to those slow footsteps circle somewhere on the other side of the building. The voice called out once more, still that same sing-song calm, saying something about how it was rude to run off before they'd finished talking to us. Nobody responded to the silence, and after a minute, I heard the footsteps move away, back toward the direction of the dock. I still didn't move. We waited there, backs against the cold wood siding, for what felt like another 20 minutes before I trusted the quiet enough to look around the corner. The gravel lot was empty. No shapes near the tree line, no one standing by the road. Our car was parked closer to the cabin, which meant getting there without knowing for certain where they were. I told Sarah we were going to move fast and not stop for anything, and she nodded, still shaking, still not saying much. We stayed low and moved along the edge of the trees instead of the open path, and somehow, we made it to the car without seeing anyone. I didn't even go back into the cabin for our bags. I remember thinking about the ring, still zipped in my duffel on the bed inside, and deciding it didn't matter enough to go back for. We got in, I locked the doors, and I drove straight out of the campground with the headlights the only thing cutting through the dark road. We didn't stop until we hit a gas station almost 40 minutes away, lit up and normal and full of ordinary late-night noise, someone's radio playing from a parked car, a guy in a work uniform buying coffee. I called the police from there and explained everything as clearly as I could manage, still breathing hard, still bleeding a little from my eyebrow. An officer met us at the gas station about half an hour later. He took our statement, said he'd send someone out to check the campground, and told us it might take a while since it was such a remote area. He also said, almost as an afterthought, that they'd had a couple of vague reports from that same lake over the past year, nothing ever confirmed, nothing that led anywhere. We never went back for our things. The campground office eventually mailed my bag to our home address weeks later, everything still inside it, including the ring, still zipped in the same pocket where I'd left it. I don't know if that was meant as a courtesy or something else entirely. It's been almost 2 years since that night, and Sarah and I still haven't talked about going camping again, anywhere, not even somewhere completely different and nowhere near that lake. I still think about how normal it all looked at first, just two people walking up to say hello on a quiet dock. Nothing about the way they approached us felt like danger, not until it was already too late to walk away from it. I called that campground's non-emergency line a few months later, mostly out of curiosity, to see if anything had ever come of the police report. Whoever answered said the property had actually changed ownership shortly after our stay, and the new management didn't have any records from before the sale. Whether that was true or just easier to say to a stranger asking questions about something they didn't want to deal with, I don't know. I proposed to Sarah about 6 months after that trip, somewhere much more ordinary, a restaurant we'd been going to for years. She said yes, and we don't talk about the lake much, but every so often, usually late at night, one of us will bring it up without really meaning to, just to ask the other if they remember exactly how it started. How normal it looked. How close they got before either of us understood what was actually happening. Neither of us has an answer for what those 4 people actually wanted, or why they approached the way they did, smiling, slow, deliberate, like it was some kind of ritual they'd done before. I've stopped trying to find a satisfying explanation for it. Some nights, I think that's the part that bothers me most. Not that it happened, but that I'll never fully understand why.